Starting off this episode, mayanmanifestor appears the Earth is cracking up. This is confirmed by suspicious observers later in the program. Please keep watching. Believersunderground confirms yesterday's story by the Young Turks and gives us some good food for thought.
Hey guys, I was just reading this article. Croatian scientist says Earth is ripping apart. So of course I thought that was a pretty terrifying thing to say. But it says here, following the massive Indonesian earthquakes, tectonic activity has continued to rise since then. A leading earthquake scientist has warned that the planet could be cracking up after a series of massive earthquakes in just 48 hours. Expert George Marmiu, sorry about your name, hun, from Romania's National Institute of Earth Physics says 39 quakes had hit the globe within 2 days. The series started with two massive quakes in Indonesia, measuring 8.6 and an 8.2 on the Richter scale, rapidly followed by three more, only slightly smaller, in Mexico within hours. There is no doubt that something is seriously wrong. There have been too many strong earthquakes, he said. He added, the quakes are a surprise that cannot easily be explained by current scientific knowledge. With the Indonesian quake, for example, statistically, there should be one big earthquake in this part of Asia every 500 years. However, since 2004, there were already 3 quakes with a magnitude over 8, which is not normal. When you read a headline like that, Croatian scientist says Earth is ripping apart, doesn't your mind immediately go to the movie 2012? The crust displacement or, some kind of a nightmare. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
Top news, the double 8-pointers in Sumatra April 11th tore apart a chunk of the planet. This is interesting, especially with all the volcanoes in the area, plus that one buoy we got our eyes on. You may remember that George Marmiu indicated that was a signaling of a crustal breakup just days after those quakes. He hadn't even seen the bigger one that hit the Philippines weeks after. Most called him crazy back then. You may remember there was no tsunami because it was a strike slip and not a thrust. Strike slips apparently can cause quakes across the globe for days. This article, the experts blame the Sumatra double 8-pointers for all these quakes here. Some of you undoubtedly remember those.
Some days it's a paycheck, some days it's a reality check. Think about
The University of Colorado tells Discovery News the Arctic has always been the canary in the coal mine, and now it might be too late.
As the effects of greenhouse warming take hold, it's the Arctic where we're going to see it first. It's the Arctic where those changes are going to be most pronounced. It's exactly what we see. It's a case of we hate to say we told you so, but we did, and it's time to take action.
The study says the melting ice sheets would add 5.9 inches to the sea level. Along with mountain ice melting and other factors, the sea level will actually rise 12.6 inches.
And for those who think I'm playing, I've never been playing. That's why I provide all the links, the science, the projections. Okay? They could play whatever they want with the money markets, attaching gold and silver and all their different Ponzi schemes and scams and washback tradings and over-the-counter derivatives and everything else is spending 100 million ways against the middle.
One of the most striking conclusions of the assessment is that Russia has the most to gain from climate change, followed by Canada, as the permafrost in the north thaws and both gain access to mineral resources and transport routes through the Arctic. Intelligence agencies see a future where the first world lies between 40 degrees north and the North Pole, and the second or less developed world would encompass everything beneath it. Incidentally, that includes Washington, D.C.
That's why this information's getting out there. And hopefully you help me to get that information out there. And yeah, a lot of it's scary. Sure. Well, I'm just straight shooting it. Take it or leave it.
Really should have been at the top of the agenda anyway. We're talking about the imminent destruction of the planet.
Yes, but part of the problem, Jeremy, is that so few people fully realise that the word imminent or the word urgent is relevant. They're still thinking in terms of, will it harm our children? Will it harm our grandchildren? Actually, it's a problem for us today.
And, do your homework. You got a brain. I'm trying to rock grids, and that stuff was getting to the UK. Mr. Glasgow Truther for You, he's going, hey man, your videos aren't coming up over here. I know, because I'm being censored. But for my friend in Washington who sent a couple bucks, and a friend in San Diego sent a couple bucks, and I say friends to the underground, because we are the bugs, man. You know, some days it's a paycheck, some days it's a reality check. Think about that.
And finally this evening, a special catch-up episode with Suspicious Observers.
Good morning, folks. Does this count as the Weather Channel fear-mongering? Want to guess a timeline on that 100 million dead? 100 years? 50? How about 18? Slightly better news here. Russia flips Monsanto the bird over that same rat cancer study. Well played. The ISS may need to maneuver out of the way of space debris today. Hope they film that if it happens. For the second day in a row, a large earthquake ripped L waves across the planet. A 6.9 rattled the Aleutian Islands in Alaska last night. We had one measurement that hit 7.1. And as of this morning, the USGS downgraded to a 6.4. Good morning, folks. Top story, and it's almost undeniable. Our friend Sunsflare has caught NASA red-handed faking Mars pictures. The link to his video is below.
In this video, I pointed out this section where it was not visible in a prior image, yet it is here. If you take a look at this image, you've got two rock formations with 1, 2, 3, 4 legs here. Look at this. We've got two rock formations. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 legs here with a squiggly line, and again here, and again here. These are identical. The difference is this segment here, that's not here. It has to be copy and paste. And notice this is also a different color hue than this here.
Than this, and it is resized. Take a look over here. Just for observation's sake, consider this as 2 eyes, a nose, and part of the mouth. 2 eyes and a nose. I say this so I can point this out easily in this dark section here. Let's come over here. We've got 2 eyes, a nose, part of the mouth. 2 eyes, a nose, and a dark section. It's identical. Let's follow this. Zigzag, zigzag. Zigzag, zig. And we'll come over here as well. What do you see here? See this? It's duplicated. So what does this mean? It means you can take this entire image, throw it in the trash, because we don't know what we're looking at here. This is totally fabricated. Spent billions of dollars to send satellites to get these imagery. Programs in, and this is what we get.
Upset.
A report came out against fracking here in the U.S., but it's now coming under heavy fire from the big gas companies, even as local residents continue to get sick and die. Top quake of the day, the 6.0 in the Solomon Islands that rang as high as 6.5 on local charts. The regions on the sun are swinging in on the southeastern limb here on the HMI magnetogram. We need to view it like this to get both the intensity and the magnetics on there. Could have some little spots developing around that big leading umbra. If so, it'll be party time. However, the sun's a lush, didn't wait for the new spots to pop off a big one. There was no flare here, but a very significant filament eruption that created enough magnetic instability to blast coronal particles out in a tremendous CME that will hit Earth in the coming 2 to 3 days. But the Earth footprint was just south of that blast site with lots of connectivity nearby. So the Earth took an energy surge as well, and we are currently experiencing a polar radiation storm. This doesn't show the radiation, rather the D-region effects, but the affected area is a good facsimile. Hopefully none of you live in the red zone. Good morning, folks. Visiting the family and short on sleep, so it's the top line only this morning. The preface to this story is that ice is accumulating in the Antarctic. It's climate change of both extremes, not just global warming. But hey, 1,800 years is a long time, and without as much ice up north here, more energy will be absorbed rather than reflected. Been hearing a lot about the Texas Brine Company confirming cavern collapse in Louisiana. Well, this local story claims the company blamed earthquakes. Problem is that the Dukes of Downgrade over at the USGS flipped the script on us and called them on it, saying the quake readings were caused by their collapsing cavern. The Virgin Islands have been taking more 4-pointers as of late. Had a large 5-pointer near southern Mexico a few hours ago. Taking a look at yesterday's precipitation records, Texas got the worst of it, with flash flooding reported in many areas. And their coastline, along with the rest of the southeast, is in the Torcon zone again this evening. From yesterday, not your regular solar flare and CME. This was a filament eruption. And keeping in mind the blast site location as we look at it here, parts of the expanding CME cloud are going to miss Earth high, low, left, and right. That means that there are parts we can't see coming directly at us, currently occluded by the opaque disk blocking the sun. NASA and NOAA are both predicting impacts for late tomorrow night or early Monday UTC. Even without a big flare, this may cause minor geomagnetic storms. Earth swings in between the Sun and Uranus today, with the Moon not far off from opposing the Sun herself. All likely heard the latest doom tartary surrounding the alleged brightest comet ever. I saw someone saying it will be as bright as the Sun, despite being just over half the visible magnitude. Well, it'll be here in a little more than a year. You can feel free to worry about it till then if you want to. I've actually selected a day 1 year ahead of now. This is 2013, because at this time, we may see a bright blue comet atop a brilliant red planet. You see where I'm going with this. That's all I got in this comet right now. Volcano waking up near the border of China and North Korea. Spain seeing some wild weather, trading in wildfires for tornadoes and flooding. A 5.4 rattled Peru, couple big quakes in the Bay of Bengal and North Indian Ocean. Last couple of days have seen some of the highest F1 critical frequencies of the fall. This is our indirect planetary overionization tracker, and for those new to it, in 2006 it began indicating an ultra-high ionization of the F1 layer, and it's gotten worse every year. Tiny bit of good news, the polar radiation storm is dying down, proton bombardment almost back to normal. We remember this filament eruption from 2 days ago. Came just right of center on the northern hemisphere. It is expected to hit Earth within the next 24 hours. Could spark auroras and geomagnetic instability. When it hits, it'll be quite obvious. The solar wind speed in yellow here is under 300 kilometers per second, and we're getting on average about 1 proton per cubic centimeter in the orange. Those will spike upon impact. But there may be more on the way yet. That same active region popped off a short series of events that peaked at an M flare and did release a small CME. If this impacts Earth, it will only be a glancing blow, but we may already be in storm conditions from the last impact. Good morning, folks. You know what this is. Global L waves ripping across the entire planet, emanating from a deep earthquake that struck Colombia yesterday. USGS is settled on 7.3. You can see some of the different measurements here. We also had a 5.4 strike off the Volcano Islands, a 4.0 in Utah, and a 4.2 in France. The super typhoon waxed and waned, hit as a tropical storm, and is moving away now, not before causing some damage and local flooding. Dude, where's my car? Solar wind. The far left side is space weather quiet, and then the CME hits. It was from the filament eruption, the one expected to hit. Did so near the end of the day UTC and lit up the auroras. Took down the BZ, and we entered a strong geomagnetic storm almost immediately. Many have already asked me if that's what knocked out the power in Colorado, which failed during the peak of the storm. Nobody on Earth is in a position to say definitively yes or no, but the experts don't think it was weather related. Good morning, folks. Getting right to it, the quake of the day was a 6.2 that hit near Japan. Here are some of the various local readings. While we're over here, a nuclear plant in South Korea had an unexpected shutdown. A moderate tremor struck off the southern coast of Mexico. The heat in Southern California is breaking records well over 100. Poland earthquake swarm is very unusual, and we had a 4.5 hit California not long ago. You can bet that low pressure system is going to do it again today, where the eastern edge is pulling up from the south and dragging moisture from the Gulf directly over land here. Tonight's rainfall record should mostly be in the Torcon zone. Folks, we're back to this thing. Debunked one anomaly, but another's pretty concerning. The debunked anomaly, as you watch the South Pacific, is this quick overlapping error where the visualization doesn't fit properly together. Then my buddy Jack pointed out a different anomaly. No definitive answers at this moment, but if you fancy weather modification, consider Arecibo and local VLFs before HARP. Keeping in mind that this shows precipitable water at the microwave imager, it's tough to imagine, though, that people on the ground or in boats wouldn't notice something like this. Took another gamma burst last night. Nice that our X-ray flux managed to die down around the same time. Set of flare dangers are coming into view here as well. Last 24 hours and 193 angstroms. Couple little flares, CMEs, filaments snapping off like this one off the left side here. I'll leave you with a much bigger plasma filament turning to face us now at 6:05 a.m. Eastern Time, and that's the news, folks. Be safe.
RT is sitting down with Jesse Ventura, former governor of Minnesota, former Navy SEAL, former professional wrestler, actor, and best-selling author. It's very nice to see you back at our New York studio. You yourself compare politicians to, possibly wearing NASCAR racing suits because they have so much support from corporations.
Well,
how can this be done?
First, NASCAR racing suits, like if you look at Jimmy Johnson, the great race, he's got patches all over that tells who his sponsors are. Well, if we require them to wear that, then we as voters will know who owns them, because they'll have to wear patches stating who owns them. That's kind of a joke, because it'll never happen.
What do you think about the election campaign this time around right now?
I think what you're seeing is them finally rising up to the level of professional wrestling. And I say rising up to it, because in pro wrestling, in front of the cameras, we all hate each other. Behind the scenes, it's a business. And that's the same way it is for them. It's a sham. In front of the cameras and the public, they hate each other and they're on different sides of the fences. Behind the scenes, they're going out to dinner together. They're ensuring that their two-party dictatorship maintains its power. There's no difference between these two. Don't kid yourself. Oh, there's always a double standard. There was a double standard on the Wall Street protests. While we're busy pepper spraying them and running them off with dogs, we're heralding the protests over in the Middle East. Oh, ain't this lovely? Go, go, go. We're like cheerleaders over there, while at the same time here, we're squashing down our own protesters. The height of hypocrisy.
But what about elections?
Elections the same way. We want to bring democracy all over the world, and we don't even have it here anymore, because the two gangs pick your president. Don't they? You have no say-so. Mitt Romney was picked 4 years ago. You know how I know that? He wasn't picked at the convention. They knew 4 years ago. You know how I know that? Because when Obama won, right after Obama won, you started seeing these mass advertisements on TV about Mormons. Do you recall those? Where they'd show a person who was a fireman or a teacher, and they'd show all these attributes of how wonderful they were. And remember, the person would look at the camera in the end and say, "And I'm a Mormon." Well, they were preparing us, because I remember as a kid when John F. Kennedy ran, he was the first Roman Catholic. And there was great fear in this country that the Pope would be running the country if we elected this Roman Catholic, until Kennedy came out with a very strong speech talking about his belief in the separation of church and state. I might be a Catholic on Sunday when I go to church, but when I govern this country, that won't enter into it. Well, that showed me right there. Mitt Romney was their pick 4 years ago of the gang.